All right, so we are going to be having a quiz on sections 5.1 and 5.2, and those both have to do with factoring, okay? It might be trinomial factoring, it might be factoring a difference of two squares, it could be factoring just common factors, stuff like that, but just factoring. And once you factor everything, they want you to cancel stuff out so we can simplify. So all of these problems that we do, they're all going to be simplified problems, okay? So we'll start off with the basic ones, the ones that don't have multiplication. Okay, so number one, first example for us here will be something that's pretty easy. Something like that. So we're not multiplying two fractions together. We're just going to simplify the one. Okay, the one fraction that's given to us. So you look at the top and at the bottom, right? Look at both top and bottom and ask yourself, on top, is there anything I can do? Now remember that little factoring flowchart is kind of helpful, right? Because the very first thing it asks you on top is there anything you can factor out of just 25? Well, no, it's just 25. Is it 4 terms? No. Is it 3 terms up on 25? No. 2 terms? No. So if it's not 2 terms, then it's prime. That means you're done. So in other words, I can't do anything to the top. It's just a 25. Then I go back to the bottom and I ask the same questions. Does the bottom have something in common? And right there we say yeah, right? So the top is just 25 over 15 and 25 have a 5 in common, right? So I'm going to take out a 5 and I can factor out the bottom. Now if I take out a 5 from 15, I get a 3, so it's 3n minus, and a 5 from 25 would be 5. My last step is just to simplify the 25 over 5, right? So I know that 25 can be divided by 5. If I reduce 25 and 5 by 5, I get a 5 up here and a 1 right there. So my final answer is going to be a 5 over 3n minus 5. Now remember, there's always that question of, can I cancel this 5 with that 5? Can I do that? No, right? Because like I told you guys, if that 5 is connected to something else with a plus or a minus, then that means that you have to eliminate everything, right? You have to have another matching piece of 3n minus 5 in order to get rid of that 5 on the bottom. So this is done, okay? We're done with this problem. Okay, there's my solution. So yeah, there will be some questions that kind of look that easy. I'm going to do another one here that's kind of on the easier side. R plus 5 over 3R plus 15. And then we'll move on to something a little bit tougher. But I do want to let you guys see that there are some problems that are not supposed to be that difficult, okay? Now you notice how on the top and on the bottom there are no parentheses, okay? But I would put a parenthesis on top. Now why would I do that? Well, because I'm going to go through the process and ask myself, number one, do R and 5 have anything in common on the very top? No. Is it 4 terms? No. 3 terms? No. 2 terms? Yes. Is it a difference of 2 squares? No, it's an addition. It's not even a difference. So I'm done. I cannot do anything to the top. So since I can't do anything to the top, I'm going to rewrite this with the parenthesis around the R plus 5. That's just my own habit. You don't have to do it, but you'll see why I like to do it, okay? Now I look at the bottom and I ask myself, again, starting with the question, do they have anything in common? Well, what do they have in common? A 3, right? So I'm going to take out a 3. And when I factor out the 3, I end up with R plus 5. Now, since my R plus 5 on the bottom is in a parenthesis, and since I put one on top, it makes it a little bit more obvious to see that they match, right? So I can now cancel those out. On top, if everything disappears, there's always at least a 1, right? So you're going to put a 1 over 3, and you're done. Okay? So you're done with that one. Let me do it this way. That way it doesn't look like different colors. But that one's pretty easy, right? Just make sure you cancel out properly, factor properly, and you'll be okay. All right? And then we get to some other types of problems, some that are a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to do 2 more of these, and then we're going to move on to the multiplication stuff. Okay? But this is kind of just, I guess you could call it your warm-up in a sense, because you got to be able to do this type of stuff in order to do the multiplication. So here you go, 3r minus 6 over 2r squared plus 5r plus 3. So now we're going to move into some some trinomial factoring. So that's only on the bottom. On top, we'll do that right now. So first question you ask yourself on top is, do they have anything in common? Well, the 3 and a 6 have a 3 in common, right? So we'll take out a 3. On the inside, what's left is an r minus what? 2, right? So there we go. Now the bottom, I have to go through the process and ask myself, is there anything in common with 2r squared plus 5r plus 3? Well, they don't all have letters. They don't all have a number that divides them all. So they don't have anything in common. So what I'm going to do is move on. And the next question is, do they have 4 terms? No. 3 terms? Yes. Right? So if it's 3 terms, I'm going to have to use the X method or a box method, whatever you prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and use the X method over here. My A is a 2. My B, excuse me, is a 5. And my C is a 3. Now remember, since A is equal to 2, I'm going to have to divide. Okay? Since A is equal to 2, I'm going to have to divide. So up on top, A times C, that's 2 times 3, that's a 6. And on the bottom is my B value, that's a 5. So I need 2 numbers that multiply to 6 that add up to 5. 2 and 3. All right, so 2 and 3. Excuse me. But I have to divide, right? I got to divide by 2. So dividing by 2. By the way, that should have been a positive. Let me put that back. Positive 2, positive 3. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. 2 divided by 2, that's going to be a 1. So this is a positive 1. And then on the other side, I can't divide 3 by 2, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, so now I have my factors. My factors are, r plus 1, r plus 3 halves. But I have to fix that fraction, so I'm going to put that 2 in front of the r. So this little value here is going to go in front of the r. So that's r plus 1, 2r plus 3. So let me put that over on the other side. Okay, so now that we've done that, can I cancel anything? No, I can't, right? That's kind of unfortunate. It would have been nice, but we can't. But there it is. It's simplified. Okay? So this is my answer. It would have been nice if we could have canceled something out to at least see, like, okay, all this work I did resulted in something, but in this case it did. Okay? So, any questions so far on this? Again, we're just factoring and trying to simplify as much as possible. Canceling if it's something that we can do. Okay? But if not, we just leave it like that. No need to multiply everything back out again. Okay? So let me go ahead and move into the multiplication portion. All right? So it's going to look very similar, just that we're going to have like two pieces at once. So I'm going to put multiply and simplify. So multiply and simplify. Of course, simplify if possible. If not possible, it's fine. Just leave it alone, like we did up there. So here we go. This is question number 4. So there will be some questions that maybe look like this. Let me see. There we go. And you can do this one of two ways. I showed you guys 2 different ways in the notes. I told you can just multiply everything straight out, or you can start cross-canceling if you'd like. Okay? That's completely up to you, whatever you prefer. But if I multiply straight out, on top, I'm going to have 8 times 7, which is 56. And on the bottom, I'm going to have 16 times 5, which is, what is that? It's 30, so it's 80. So I'm going to have to reduce 56 over 80. That's pretty big, right? Now, of course, you guys will have your calculators and stuff in front of you, so it probably won't be a big deal. But for me that I don't have my calculator out here, maybe I'd rather do this a different way. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to look at a couple different things. I'm going to start with my 8. Okay, I can look at my 8, and let me rewrite this really quick because I'm going to start marking this up. So I'm going to look at my 8, and I'm going to say, is there any number, either top to bottom or diagonally, that can reduce the 8? Is there something, a number? So can 8 and 5 be reduced? No. What about 8 and 16? Yeah. Now remember, do not do 8 and 7. Never go side to side. Okay, either diagonal or straight up and down. So 8 and 16 can. So 8 goes into itself once and into 16 twice. Now, don't worry about that one that popped up. We're not going to do anything with that. But maybe 7 and 2, I can't divide those. And 7 and 5, I can't divide those. So I basically simplified the numbers right now. So let me go ahead and multiply now, because now my numbers are a lot smaller. So the top left times the top right of the fraction. 1p times 7p is 7p squared. Now the bottom left times the bottom right. 5p squared times 2 is 10p squared. Can I cancel anything? The p squares, right? So let's get rid of those. And I just get a 7 over 10. And there you go. You will have some questions like this. Like I told you guys, I literally got your quiz, the one that I'm giving you guys tomorrow. Opened up the file and I said regenerate questions. That's it. So it basically got every single type of question you're going to see and then just redid it for you. So like I said, these questions are literally the types of questions you'll see tomorrow, just with different numbers. Okay? So make sure you go over these things. Now, let's go ahead and move on to something that's a little bit more, looks a little bit more complicated. I actually prefer these, but something that looks a little bit more complicated. So number 5. Oops, sorry, that's m minus 3, m plus 1 over m plus 3 times m plus 3, m plus 7 over m plus 1, m plus 7. Now I do want you guys to notice how the bottom left corner of that fraction does not have a parenthesis around it. It is a binomial. Normally I like to put them. So I just got to ask myself just to make sure, is it simplified before I put a parenthesis around it? Well, m plus 3 on the bottom left corner doesn't have anything in common with anything on that statement, m plus 3. It's not 4 terms, it's not 3 terms. It is 2 terms, but it's not a difference of 2 squares, which means that it's simplified as much as possible. So I am going to put a parenthesis around it. Now again, I'm going to write this out again because I'm going to start marking it up. So I like to have like an extra copy of it. So if you don't want to, that's okay. You can always see the original problems in my notes later. I'm just going to rewrite it. All right. What can I cancel out? All right. M plus 1 with that m plus 1 because they're diagonal to each other, so they can be canceled. What else could I cancel out? All right. M plus 3 with the m plus 3. Those are diagonal to each other. Is there anything else, or am I done? M plus 7s. Those are vertical to each other, so those are okay. Well, everything basically disappeared. Now I'm going to take a step that usually people don't like to write, but I'm just going to go ahead and write it just so that you guys can see what happened after all of this occurred. That's basically what's left over. Okay? Because I got rid of everything on the right side, but you don't just make it disappear. It's a 1 over 1. And on the left side, the denominator disappeared, so I'm just going to put a 1 there. So my answer for this is just m minus 3. That's all that's left. Okay, so there will be some questions that look like this. They're going to be pre-factored for you. Okay, so you can call these like really easy ones, right? Because they already did everything for you. All you got to do is go in there and chop everything up and give them their answer. Okay, but then we're going to move on to the next section. There's going to be parts that are not pre-done for you. Okay, and you're going to have to do them. So maybe something like number 6. Now, before I get into that, any questions right now from 1 through 6 or 1 through 5? Again, you notice everything we're doing is kind of the same thing, right? They're just trying to make it a little bit more complicated by putting in some more terms and stuff like that. But if you're able to factor, I think you're going to be okay. Let's do this one. And remember, I'm going to write it out 2 times just because I'm going to mess with it, but you don't have to if you don't want to. When it comes to problems like this, you got to take these a step at a time. Okay, unless you can obviously see like, oh my gosh, these match, I'm going to cancel them out, then great. But if you don't see it right away, then just take every little piece. You're going to start with the top left fraction, bottom left fraction after that, the top of the right fraction, the bottom of the right fraction after that. Simplify as much as possible, and then it'll look hopefully something like this problem, and you just start canceling stuff out. Okay. If you do this and nothing cancels out, then I'm going to tell you double check your factoring because maybe you messed up. Okay, because these questions are meant to break down in most cases, right? We had one example where nothing happened after I factor, and that's okay. You just want to make sure you did it right. Okay. So here we go. So rewriting this well, I'm not even going to rewrite it. My next step will be the rewriting portion. So x plus 7 on the top left corner. Does it have anything in common? No. It's just x and 7. Are there 4 terms on x plus 7? No. 3 terms? No. 2 terms? Yes. Is it a difference of 2 squares? No, it says plus. I mean, that's one of the obvious things that it's not a difference, right? It says plus. So that means that x plus 7 is as simplified as it can be. So I'm not going to do anything with it. Okay. Bottom left corner. Well, do they have anything in common? X squared plus 14x plus 48? No. Is it 4 terms? No. Is it 3 terms? Yes. So I have to use the X method or box method, whatever you'd like. So here we go. My A term is a 1. My B term is a 14. And my C term is a 48. It's a big number there. So A times C is 48. B is 14. And I got to think of two numbers that multiply to 48 that add up to 14. 8 and 6, both positive, right? Both positive. Positive 8, positive 6. Notice since my A is 1, that means I don't have to divide. So there we go. Those are my answers. So here's my factor. X plus 8, X plus 6. Let me write that down. X plus 8, X plus 6. Okay, times. All right, here's my next trinomial, right? Do they have anything in common on the top right? No. 4 terms? No. 3 terms? Yes. Factor, right? Let's factor using the X method. So let me do another one of these things down here. My ABCs are 1, B is 11, C is 24. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I think there's one question with 3 trinomials. Like, remember your homework had one where there was 3 trinomials? You have to do it 3 times. There might be one like that. Don't hold me to that, but I think I saw one of those. And then I do remember seeing a difference of 2 squares, which we have not done. But I will do one little tiny mini problem with that, just to remind you of how to do it, okay? Let's continue with this. 1 times 24 is 24, and B is 11. Two numbers that multiply to 24 that add up to 11. 3 and 8, so positive 3, a positive 8. Notice I already circled them because I know my A term is a 1. I don't have to divide it. So it's going to be X plus 3, X plus 8. So X plus 3, X plus 8. Almost done simplifying. Okay? 7x plus 49. Well, do they have anything in common? Yeah, what number do they have in common? 7. So 7 times x plus 7. All right, now's the fun part, right? I remember doing all this work when I was in high school, and at this point is when I'm like, oh, good, now I can just get rid of stuff. What could I get rid of? X plus 7, so here and here. Anything else? X plus 8. Anything else? I mean, the x plus 3 doesn't have a matching pair. The x plus 6 doesn't have a matching pair. That 7 that's just hanging out by itself doesn't have a 7 on top. So basically, just put everything together now, okay? So on top, I'm going to take an extra step just so you can see it. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. But it's just so that you guys can see the aftermath of all this. Okay, that's what's basically left over. So if I multiply everything together, I get x plus 3 over 7 times x plus 6. You do not have to multiply the 7 into the x plus 6. Just leave it factored, okay? Leave it factored. And that'll be it. So let me just give you one little bonus thing that you guys need to know how to do, because I know I saw one question that had a difference of 2 squares in it. So let me remind you of what that looks like. So just a real quick FYI here. Not even an example, I guess. If you see something like this, let's say on a fraction on the top or on the bottom, okay, whatever. But if you see something like this, remember, go through your process, okay? First thing to ask yourself is, does that have anything in common with the two terms, right? X squared minus 25. Is there something you can factor out? No. Is it 4 terms? No. 3 terms? No. 2 terms? Yes. Is it a difference of 2 squares? That is. Okay. How do I know? Well, first off, it's a difference because there's a subtraction. The 2 squares, well, the x squared is pretty obvious, right? It says squared on it. Okay. But then I got to look at the 25 and say, can I write 25 as something squared? Well, yeah, 5 squared. That is a difference of 2 squares. So I can write this as x squared minus 5 squared. Okay, I can do that. So if I can do that, that means I can factor it. X minus 5, x plus 5. And then I'm done. Okay, I am going to let you guys use that factoring flowchart. All right, just in case you need it. All right, the thing that tells you, like, check to make sure if there's any factors in common. 4 terms, 3 terms, 2 terms, that. I'm going to let you use that tomorrow as notes. Okay? So if you want to bring that with you, feel free. If you feel confident and don't need it, then don't even have it in front of you, because sometimes all it does is going to confuse you, because you're like, maybe I should use it, and then you didn't practice with this, so then you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I'm going to let you guys use that tomorrow.